welcome to the bench.
Welcome.
Horace, how you doing today?
I'm doing great.
Hell yeah.
Absolutely great.
I'm doing great too. We've got a great show for you today. I want to welcome everybody that is rating us from Kibler's stream. Thank you and welcome. Sonic 2 Adventure Vibes. Thank you. We're gonna get started and we're gonna power through the intro here because we got a lot to talk about today. So for those of you that have no idea what you just stumbled into, this is a stream for Jesus 454 viewers. Yeah, let's go. This is a stream for the Belegarth Boffer Sport game. This is called The Bench. We invite experts from sword fighting to show up and talk about sword fighting with us. And today we're going to be talking about lightest touch LARPs, or lightest touch role-playing games, which is not what Belegarth is, but this is an opportunity to showcase some of our Bell players that do other LARPs. So that's why we have our special guests, Var and Kibler, with us today. But we're going to get through our announcements, and then we'll get on with the show. Let's start with events. What do we got coming up for us?
Yeah, so this weekend at Billy Creek on Saturday, September 21st, is the Volunteer Day. So if you want to help build out Billy Creek for Oktoberfest or other events that happen at the site, please go and volunteer and help build something cool. Also, the weekend after that, September 28th, is the first invasion of Mictlan. I hope I said that right. New Realm. I'm sorry I can't go, but I am very excited that there's a new realm pretty near to me that hopefully I'll be able to visit soon in the future. Oktoberfest is our big event that my realm, Numenor, throws in 2 weeks at the Billy Creek site. It starts on October 2nd, ends on October 6th. Please come out and fight. I have an announcement for Oktoberfest, the Gilded Tavern. From the team that last year brought you Chimera's Head Tavern, we're proud to announce that we have rebranded as the Gilded Tankard Tavern. We will be returning to Oktoberfest Friday night to bring you new drinks at the free bar, new games to play, popcorn refreshments, and a wondrous auction of fabulous prizes. Please plan to visit us starting at 7 p.m. at the Livery Barn with last call and the auction featuring donations from all your favorite vendors, many esteemed members of the community at the stroke of midnight. Bring your best self to take part in what is quickly becoming the hottest nightlife event in Belegarth. Well, that besides, the ditch field, which is across the way, so maybe do both. Also, War, best day event in all Belegarth, October 19th in Middlemarch in Indianapolis. Fantastic event. Please go, battle your heart out. I don't know what the team names are actually. It's like red or blue every time, and I feel like we always lose, but I love that event. And then finally, Winter War will be November 6th, the far future big event. So if you can't make it Oktoberfest, there's another event coming.
Apparently, I'm louder than everybody again, so I'm going to turn myself down a bit. I'm switching to OBS next week from Streamlabs because I didn't do anything different. I didn't change anything. It just sometimes things don't work. So we're going to do our best to stop with technical problem Thursdays. Sorry, guys. Let's see. Turn stream up. The Streamlabs curse. You're not wrong.
Streamlabs curse.
The bench booties are available. We've got the.
I love these so much.
If you check out the bench Facebook page, we have the pre-order form for the bench booties available. Use promo code GAT for a $5 discount. Write that down, promo code GAT, and then you can get $5 off. Otherwise, they go for $45. Pre-orders are due. We're gonna send out the order on October 15th, and then as soon as they arrive, I'm either going to drop them off with you guys at events or send them out to you. So I'll probably invite local people over to my house to help me ship all this shit out. But we got shorts in. Also, our sister show, Goblin Storytime, is on the Bench Network, which is this channel. That is every Tuesday at 6 o'clock. He just had his second show, and it went pretty well. It's narrated by Master Chronicler Cord. It's a much different focus than this stream. This stream is very focused on sword fighting and sword play. That stream is very much focused on like stories and that kind of stuff. Last event, and then we'll get to the business. Recent tournament wins, courtesy of the Foam Fighting Tournaments website. In Equinox, we've got Lance and we don't know took first place in single sword. They didn't write it down. Lance and Farron took first and second in sword and board. Blademaster Fox and Sir Gorg, congrats Gord, I know you're here. Took first and second in short red, and then Cormix and Squire Mongoose took first and second in spear. I'm not going to read all of this, but Kingdom of Crystal Groves results, Squire Toby took first on that one. Keep on the Borderlands Valkyrie Cup results, Warlord Heron took first place for that one. Keep on the Borderlands 7 and under, Squire Stug took first place. Hell yeah, Stug. And then Hammer of God tournament results, Warlord Sir Bell took first, Warlord Magni took second, along with Warlord Sir Ferrix. All right, let's welcome our guests. Welcome, Kibler and Var. How are you guys today?
Go ahead. you made it sound like you're going to talk, but I'm great.
Let's check out our agenda real quick and talk about what we're going to talk about on the show. First, we're gonna say who are Kibler and Var. We're gonna interview our guests and learn all about them. Second, we're gonna talk about what is a lightest touch LARP. So we're gonna dive into that and explore the nuances of what that means. And then, speaking of nuance, we're gonna go into how are lightest touch LARPs different from Belegarth. So we're gonna do a compare contrast. We're gonna discuss the different types of lightest touch LARPs, and then give our guests an opportunity to promote their stuff. And if we have time, no promise, Pickles, if we have time, we're going to watch some promos. We do have a packed episode today, so I don't know that we're going to get to it, but we're going to do our best. So let's kick things off with our guest of honor. Let's talk to Kibler. Who is Kibler?
Hi.
Hello.
I think most people out there who are watching probably know me most from my time as a competitive Magic the Gathering player, streamer, game designer, etc. But I actually did LARP before I did any of those. I first picked up a foam sword in like 1993. I played Nero, actually at the original chapter in Massachusetts, from when I was like a teenager. I was 12 at my very first event. You actually had to be 13 to play, but it was like a week before my birthday. And I just lied about it, because what kind of 12-year-old, 13-year-old is that? Yeah, of course I was born in 79, not 80. And I did Nero both in Massachusetts and when I went to college in Atlanta for about 10 straight years, playing the same campaign and actually the same character throughout all of that. And then once I moved to California, I kind of got out of the scene. There wasn't anything that I was at least aware of near me. But then back in 2020, which is the perfect time to get back into any kind of live event, I started doing a game called Twin Mask in SoCal, which is a super fun game that I'm actually now on staff for and help make the rules for. But I've been doing that since then, and I got into Belegarth about a year and a half ago. So I've only really been doing Belegarth style foam fighting for 18 months or so. But I've been like swinging foam swords in some capacity since I was like a small child, with a big break in the middle there. But it's kind of like riding a bike,
Oh yeah.
How did you find out about Belegarth?
So there's a big group of folks who do both Twin Mask and Belegarth in between the two sort of groups. And incidentally, the sort of practices for each of them are both on Saturdays. The Twin Mask practice is in the morning and the Belegarth practice in the afternoon. So I was hanging out at the Twin Mask practices, and some of the people who do Bell were like, "Oh, I think you should come check this out. You'd love it." And eventually I did, and I was like, "Oh, you are correct. I love this." And now I just spend like basically all day every Saturday, just hitting people with phones.
Hell yeah.
That sounds perfect.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
So so you touched on some of the magic stuff and some of the game design. Do you want to dive into that just a little bit more, and for people who aren't familiar?
Sure. So I played Magic the Gathering competitively, like at a professional level, for many years. I'm actually in the Magic the Gathering Pro Tour Hall of Fame. I won like 2 Pro Tours. That's like the equivalent of like a top level event. Um, and I sort of went on from there to work in game design. If you're familiar with the Ascension deck building board game, I was one of the original designers of that.
I love that game.
I did too.
I was like the lead developer of the original World of Warcraft trading card game. I've done a bunch of consulting work on Magic and a variety of other games as well. I haven't really been doing game design or competing actively in a while at this point. I basically started doing full-time content creation, streaming, etc. About 10 years ago, and that went very well. So now that's just kind of what I do. I have a Magic Commander gameplay show called Commander at Home, which we started about, actually, incidentally, around the same time I started doing Belegarth, about a year and a half ago.
Nice.
And that's been going really well. And we actually just posted a new episode today. So if you're interested at all, go check it out.
Sweet.
So I'm going to take it to chat really quick. See if anybody has any questions for you from chat. Specifically, let's try to. We normally try to aim towards like Belegarth or lightest touch, focus questions. But at this point, feel free to ask what you'd like. Let's see. Favorite fighting style, Kibler. What's your favorite fighting style?
So, in lightest touch LARPs, I'm 100% a 2-weapon fighter. You saw some of the pictures. You see me with 2 long swords. That's my jam. Belegarth, I fight sword and board because there are spears and arrows, and die. We'll talk about it obviously when we go into some of the differences between what you need to worry about in lightest touch versus Belegarth style fighting. But yeah, shields are kind of not something you can do without when one hit kills you.
Oh, that's very fair. Let's see. What's your favorite? This is from Baranor TTV. What's your favorite nightlife beverage?
I don't drink that much anymore. I actually didn't drink at all at either of the Bell events I went to this year. Everyone's like, "Hey, you want some of this, some of this?" I'm like, "I want some of that. The ditch field. That's what I want."
Yeah.
I joke that like LARP has kind of become my anti-drug because I used to go out and like drink on like Friday nights or Saturday nights or whatever.
Yeah.
And now like if I go out and drink on Friday, I'm hungover for practice on Saturday, and I'm exhausted when I come back from practice on Saturday, so I don't want to go out drinking. I do like a ginger mimosa though. When we have our Commander nights, I make ginger mimosas for people, and those are delicious.
Absolute facts though. I got completely shit canned at Olympics on Thursday, and then Friday, the entire day was ruined for me because I was so hungover. I was like, why did I do that? So I feel you.
I also don't drink because it ruins your athletic performance, and I'm like, I want to fight. Like, get me in there. So
this is the try hard stream.
Still. Yeah. It's like, no, I want to wake up in the morning.
And I mean, you're talking about like I started LARPing in like the early 90s. I'm 44, right? Like my body does not process alcohol like it used to. If I was still like in my early 20s, maybe I'd be going out getting hammered and then go out in the field the next day. But your body does not like to do that anymore when you get older.
Yeah.
Baranor says, if you're hungover, come to Ranger Camp. We got liquid IV and snack. Liquid IV. When I read that, before I started reading it out loud, I thought you meant that you had an actual, like, banana bag. I'm like, fuck, I'm showing up to Ranger Camp.
With some saline.
They'd have a line.
You got like a nurse with a drip.
I'm in. Yep. I'm all in on that. Like, that's fine. Liquid IV, we can do better than that. We've got, I'll if I remember, somebody remind me, I'll put a link in the chat. Instead of liquid IV, an alternative, I've got these salt packets that you can order off Amazon that have no artificial sugar. There's no flavoring. It just tastes like sweat when you drink it, but they're perfect. They're so much better than liquid IV. Let's go one more question. So your name, so you go by Kibler in Belegarth. Is that did you decide to do that? Is that somebody? Did people just call you Kibler, and you're like, fuck it, okay?
Basically, I'm like, people are just gonna call me Kibler, so I'm just gonna go by Kibler.
That's
right?
fair.
Like,
yeah.
It's just kind of inescapable. There was actually a funny thing when I started competing. Started getting into the Hearthstone scene, which is largely what I stream now. But I was playing in some tournaments early on in Hearthstone, and I just went by Kibler, Brian Kibler, because that's my name. My username is Kibler. My username and all these things is Kibler. Because in Magic, like in tournaments, you just go by your name. Whereas like in sort of esports, which is where a lot of other people came from, they had like usernames or whatever. So I was in this tournament and be like Yane Savich Mikonin, and then just Brian Kibler. Ongoing meme.
That makes sense. I think we lost Var, but he's back now.
He's back.
Okay, there we go. Yep.
Var, we're gonna move on to you, buddy.
All right.
Who is Var? Tell us all about Var.
Well, I started fighting when I was 15. A couple months before I was actually allowed to.
It's a theme.
I told them though. They're the ones that went, just don't say anything. It's fine. It's like, you got 2 months. Don't worry about it. Just come back next time with your parents. I'd ridden my bike over, started, and I've been hitting 1 to 3 practices a week since then, all over. Been doing Bell 16 years now. Knighted, I think 5 or 6 years ago. COVID's made time a lie. I started my lightest touch LARP in Dystopia Rising. I started playing that about 8 years ago now, I believe, 8 or 9. And I've been doing that. We played all through COVID. We just played online at that point. Traveled for a couple other LARPs, lightest touch. I went to a fun one up in Canada. That's great. Yeah. No, I want to go to Bico. That was on the list. No, it was a small horror LARP up there. But yeah.
So fun fact, I actually met Var at Dystopia Rising. We didn't meet at Belegarth.
Whoa.
And so my friends and I, we found out, some Amp friends of mine, we found out about Dystopia Rising, and we thought, okay, this sounds crazy, so we're going. And the big selling point behind DR was like, the monsters can attack you when you're asleep in your cabin. Like, that was the whole thing. And Var, correct me if I'm wrong here, but like a good chunk of the DR player base were people that came from like, paper, rock, scissors, vampire and shit.
We got a lot of people who used to play parlor LARPs, and their friends who came to DR pulled them over. The people like, that's been fun, but I want to do a little more, so they step into that. So we have a lot of people who can't do Amp-Guard or Belegarth or full contact. So the lightest touch lets them. They don't even have to fight if they don't want to. They might die if they get attacked, but they don't have to, and that's really appealing to some people. I think some of the creators for it, they didn't even come from a Boff or LARP background. They came from Vampire and decided to make the game, I think, in their garage one day.
That's awesome.
So we a bunch of me and my Amp-Guard Hood Rat friends, and keep in mind, a lot of these guys are like warlords now and stuff. So we were like big stick jocks and complete just menaces. We decide we're going to go to this, and these zombies are going to attack us in the middle of the night, and we're going to fuck them up.
Yeah.
So we came in with these what was it, old Yorkers?
Yorkers.
Yeah, we came in as Yorkers. And so we decided we were going to be Italians. So we came in and our character voices were like this, And so he's playing this vampire strain or whatever it was. He's playing this strain of something that, not vampire. He's playing this strain that like they have a lot of pockets. Like, that's what we're known for.
Yeah.
So
Baywalkers.
Baywalkers.
Because strain is the DR equivalent of race. There's no races. There's a mutated strain of humanity, and people in different places just mutated to be different. And Yorkers and Baywalkers, it's Massachusetts and New York. They don't get along.
So we roll up to Var, and he's got all these pockets. And so we're like, hey, that guy's got a lot of fucking pockets. And they're just like, we just couldn't get over it. And so the entire event, and actually for the past 5 or 6 years, every time I see Tyler, I'm like, hey, what's up, pockets? Like, we just call him pockets.
Yep. As soon as I saw them and heard them, they hadn't even seen me. I just sighed and was like, "Oh no,
This is
more
what we're doing.
Yorkers." It's more York. We don't need more Yorkers. Why?
It was a good time. I'll save some of
Yeah.
my DR stories when we go into it. But speaking of, oops, that's not it. Where is it? Where are we at? Agenda. Speaking of, moving on. Wait, no, we got to get you. They got to ask you questions. I'm screwing this all up.
That's right.
Let's ask some questions. Var, I'll tell another DR story, and then while the chat populates, let's ask Var some questions. So feel free to push your questions for Var in the chat while that's going on. So like I said, we decided we're gonna mess these fools up as soon as they walk into our cabin. So we get up there, and me and my buddy Aaron, we start sparring. And all these parlor kid LARPs are looking at us, and they're, and keep in mind, this is a pay LARP, so they're all like, they invested money into their characters. And allegedly, these guys saw us sparring, and they're like, oh, shit.
They were. I heard them talking. I look over, and they're like, oh, no. And I look over, I'm like,
we're gonna
yes,
die.
finally.
So these guys are already really scared of us. And so we're all posted up in this the rest, do you want to camp in your tent, or do you want one of the cabins? You can get attacked. And we're like, give us a cabin, So we post up in this cabin, and we're just all night just salivating, waiting for somebody to walk in. We got our sword, every time we hear like a bump or a shuffle, we're like, get ready, go, get ready. So finally, some zombies start going in. They open this cabin door, and they got their little zombie weapons, and they're like, ugh. And they see all these amp garters with weapons like, come on, motherfucker, let's go! They shut the door and leave.
Yeah.
It was a good time. So then we figured out at that point, if we do monstering, then we can get all our fights in and, irritate everybody.
go.
Yeah.
That was our good DR story. So far,
The
what
cabins
is
were
your...
all of, like,
Oh, go ahead, sorry.
15-foot square. Sorry, yeah.
No.
Those cabins were like 15-foot squares, empty, nothing else. The
Very
door in the
small.
front middle.
And just a bunch of really sweaty try-hard amp garters just in this cabin with, like, all Florentine ready to start stabbing people.
Oh my god.
So, Var, what is your most embarrassing field moment?
Oh boy. Most embarrassing. I think there was. I can't remember. I don't remember what event this was at, but it was. I think early on in the fight, there was some objective, and like I took off running for it in front of everybody. You know how like you always get those people who try to run out first. I get out there, get to the first person, like kill them real quick. I go to grab the objective or whatever, and someone just yells, "Hey!" I stop what I'm doing, just stand up and just look like, "Huh? What?" And they shoot me in the face with an arrow. Just right there. I'm the only one up there. Entire team's coming up behind me. Like I even had my shield up. I dropped my shield and turned and looked, just right at it.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah.
Amazing.
What is your favorite weapon style?
My favorite. So I do a lot of back and forth. Like I mainly do sword and board, red, archery. Those are my main ones I do. My favorite is probably great, probably 5-foot great with a shoulder buckler. I do more sword and board. I'm probably better at that. I have great time with it still, but my great sword's probably my favorite. It's just fun.
I feel like you're known for your great sword. Like I remember, like I heard people, I've heard people talk about, oh yeah, you get Var and Merrick great sword and spear combo, you're done. Like that's what I've heard as far as like when people talk about you.
I haven't heard that at all. And greatsword's a recent thing. I just recently, it's been like the last maybe 3-4 years at most that I started using it. And like I'm okay, but me and Merrick have been fighting together for 14 years, and he's one of the top spear fighters I know.
Facts.
So I just stand there. I'm like, please rush him.
You do the work. I'm just here.
Sitting here like this, just waiting.
Last question for you. So like, how did you get your name Var?
So I went through a bunch of names, and they were all horrible. So I was really sheltered. I knew nothing about fantasy names. They were horrible. And eventually I'm like, okay, I need something better. So I downloaded a random name generator app and just went through and just wrote down ones I liked. And eventually I came up with Vareg, Vareg, and that's what I used for the longest time. But no one could remember my name ever at Belegarth. I go to my first DR event. Someone's like, oh, what's your name? I'm like, Vareg. And they go, can I call you Var? It's much easier to remember. And I'm like, yes. Yes, let's go with that.
I mean, that is my name.
Yes,
All right, moving on to our agenda. What is a lightest touch LARP? Kibler, we're going to start with you on this one.
Sure. I mean, lightest touch is just like the combat style of a LARP, right? Which generally means that in order to like have a hit count, it just needs to touch someone, right? Like we're not talking about Belegarth style, like you gotta you call light, you gotta put your hips into it kind of thing. The combat style is really like much more about you are, it's like sort of like cinematic to a certain extent, and you're trying to like land hits, rather than it being like a sport. Typically, a lot of lightest touch LARPs are more focused on the like RP part. That there's more, obviously compared to Belegarth, where like it's people may have a name, right? Or there may be people who have like sort of I'm an orc or a goblin or whatever, but like the vast majority of people are just there to fight, right? Or we're there to hang out. Whereas like the game that I play primarily now, Twin Mask, like you show up on Friday night. The game starts at 8 o'clock on Friday night, and until the game ends, like early Sunday morning, you are playing your character, right? Like, like sort of what you're talking about. Like, you can be attacked in the middle of the night. You can be attacked on the way to the bathroom. Like you're not just like going out and just finding people to spar with, kind of thing, or doing tournaments. Though there may be tournaments in the game world, it's not like the focus of it, right? It's much more about telling a story collaboratively with people. And thus the sort of fighting style typically of lightest touch LARPs are less like competitive to a certain extent, although there's obviously still very competitive people who participate in them are trying to do their best.
Well, that makes sense. Var, anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, Kibble hit it on the nose. It's with lightest touch, most people, it tends to draw a crowd that's like, yes, sword fighting, fantasy, looks fun. That is a large person with a very big stick, and I don't want any of that. And that's what I try to tell people. So I'll get some people who are excited to come out to DR and like, oh, I'm gonna come out, I'm gonna fight all these zombies. I'm like, hold up. Think of it as a role play game with combat, not a combat game where you can do some role play. Think about it like that first, just so you don't come in here with different expectations. But it's almost. And it ranges how hard you have to hit and what their lightest touch is. Some games hit harder than others, but it's generally a touch counts. And for blocks, if you touch the swing at all with your sword or shield, it counts as a block. You can't push through, you can't shove people, and it tends to appeal to a wider range of people, so you get a lot bigger player base.
Yeah. On that note, like one of the things that I love about the lightest touch LARP that I play, Twin Mask, is that like the game encompasses so many things that people who aren't necessarily like stick jocks will enjoy, right? There's like systems for magic, there's systems for crafting, there's like political influence and things like that people can get into, that isn't just like, hey, who's the best at swinging a sword, right? Because there's a lot of people who love the idea of kind of vibing in a fantasy world. Like they want to go to a Ren fair where they're like immersed, and like they're playing a character the whole time rather than just buying shit,
Yeah.
And that's, I think, a huge part of what makes those kind of games successful with a wider audience than frequently you'll find at, like more combat heavy type games, is that, like there are opportunities for those people to do a lot of things that are like, they feel centered as part of the game, as opposed to it being like, well, you can also do this, which I think is the case for a lot of people who, aren't necessarily combat focused in something like Belegarth.
Yeah.
Horus, have you ever done any kind of roleplay centric LARPs or anything like that?
So I've never actually done like a lightest touch game, but I used to work at the Renaissance Fair, and we would fight with foam swords, and they were not safe. Poor Belegarth. But they were plenty safe for doing like a lightest touch kind of thing, and that's how we would fight. If you blocked it, you blocked it. If you got hit, you got hit. And they did a role play thing for like kids at the Renaissance Fair, and you could sign up, and then you would go to all these different places, and so they would get them to come to us, and then they would like fight me or fight one of the other people there. And then we would have like little quests for them, and I always thought that was really fun, that like that's how they got their combat in, is they would come to the barbarian booth and like fight one of the fighters, or be made to fight each other.
The
So
barbarian booth, I love
I
it.
I do sort of wish that we did. I was thinking about this as you guys have been talking, that I wish we did more roleplay stuff. I feel like that got lost at some point. Like Belegarth used to be bigger on it. I feel like it's only a monster thing now, but some of my favorite memories are like, even though they weren't like heavy on roleplay, they were like kind of themed events for Belegarth, and it's we should like try to organize something, do something like that, like the big battle that they did at Rag, where they gave everybody different tabards, like random gladiator pits that we've done at night. Those always had like a role play aspect to them, and they were really fun.
Yeah.
You know where I've struggled, and I'm known for being crotchety about this, but you know where I've struggled with Amtgard roleplay specifically was that I always felt like, you know, it's something that doesn't coexist with the stickjackery in some circles. So like, you know, and so my thought was always like, well, if you want to do roleplay like these other lightest touch roleplay LARPs, do it so much better, you know. So, you know, and then if you start getting into roleplay scenarios in games like Belegarth, you know, that's not to say we shouldn't roleplay, because I love the way Belegarth roleplays now. The question is, can we do it in a way that doesn't take away from the stickjackery, you know?
Yeah.
And that's kind of that weird line there.
And so that's what I mean. Like I'm not even kidding. My first event was the first Muxlovia Mayhem, and they had like every realm took a side. I don't remember what we were fighting about, but every realm took a side, and like the big thing that happened during the event is that Rune and Bo like traitored to the Numenor side. Like they all ran across the field in the middle of it, and everybody was mad, and then we all just fought. Like there was nothing taken away from the fighting. Just before the fighting, like all these knights and all their armor and stuff were out there like talking to each other, talking shit, and then we all battled for our honor, and then, you know, did the same thing we always do, go to dinner and go home.
Makes sense.
So
Yeah.
it was a lot of fun.
So this is a good kind of transition question here. I think this one's for Kibler. What is the biggest adjustment you've had to make since coming to Belegarth?
Fighting at closer range.
Okay.
My absolute weakest part of my like fighting game in Bell is close range fighting, because the vast majority of my combat experience is in a fighting style where you're not allowed to be that close, right? Like, you know, like in the game that I primarily play, like if you are in arm's reach of someone, you are too close and you need to back up.
Wow.
And like, so, you know, like it is very much not like, you know, hey, I'm gonna like duck in and do this like wrap or whatever. It's very much like, hey, I'm sniping from range, and we're kind of exchanging that. And, you know, I'm really good there, and I'm terrible once I'm like in sort of a closer range environment, just because I have so much less practice.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
Like,
taking some notes.
When I started like doing Bell, I was so good at like just getting people's legs, because like that's one of the best targets in a hit point system, because they're big and they're there, right?
Yeah.
And that's one of the big differences like between most lightest touch LARPs and, you know, what I would say a paper doll system like Belegarth has, which is, you know, hit location and limb taking and whatnot, is that every hit anywhere in a hit point location hit point system counts the same, right? Like it is just as good to hit someone in the leg as it is to hit them in the arm, right? And not necessarily every lightest touch game is a hit point system. Like Bickoline, for instance, is a paper doll lightest touch game. But the, you know, like that's sort of saying, like, to transition from like, hey, I use two swords to I need a shield, because if I get hit once, I die. And it's the same kind of reverse of like, hey, hitting someone in the leg is good sometimes, but it's not nearly as good as hitting them in like their sword arm or, you know, their torso. So like adjusting to like trying to prioritize those kind of attack patterns, and, you know, not like just hitting people in the leg. And then initially, like I would leg someone and they'd be down like crouched with their board, and I'm like, well, now what do I do? And when you don't have, you know, any sort of experience like fighting like that, it's hard to break through that. It's like, oh yeah, I can just kick them. right?
Mhm.
It's like
Yeah.
a huge transition moment where you're like, oh, I can just bowl them over, and that's totally legal.
Push
And
them on the
you
ground.
don't have those
Yeah.
kind of instincts when you're used to like just maintaining distance at all times.
Yeah.
Horus is like, yes, you can. Yes,
Yeah.
you can.
And the opposite is true when you go from Belegarth to a lightest touch LARP, because you got a lot of shots where it's like you throw the money shot, you get that good hip scoop, they're dead. Well, what if they don't die from that and you have to hit them 30 times? And
Yeah.
You're now bent over and sideways.
Absolute facts. There's
I
a.
also just like, oh no, go ahead.
No, continue. Go ahead.
The different combat systems of different LARPs, even like lightest touch LARPs, they can be hugely different,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like, for instance, when I first started playing, I played Nero. And the Nero system is one that is basically just like kind of uncapped advancement that slows down, but like you continue getting stronger, and it's a very linear progression in lots of ways, or at least was when I played. Like, if even when I started, the sort of, if you came into like the main campaign as like a first level character or whatever, you'd have a sword. You're like, I do 2 damage when I swing, and then it's like this guy does 15. Why am I here? Right?
Yeah.
Yep.
It's even if you're like an incredible fighter, it's like you have to hit that person 8 times, and they do the same amount of damage they do once, and they probably have like 80 times the body you do, 80 times the health you do. So
Yeah.
it is, like there's definitely systems that are more or less crunchy in the sense of like how big the numbers get inflated and things like that. One thing that I actually loved about the Twin Mass system, even before I worked on it in any way with the rules, was that it is a very like low number system. Like the damage goes from 1 to 10. Nothing does more than 10 damage. Like a character's health is 1 to 10. You can have armor and stuff, but like as a player, you can't just have like 100 health and like swing 20s and make the new person next to you feel useless.
Yeah.
Right. Like,
So you have played DR.
Yeah.
Old
that was
DR,
a
old
big
DR.
thing. Like I think coming into a game like as a newer player and feeling like you don't matter at all because like it is just so in your face how much more powerful these other characters are than you. And I think that's like a flaw in a lot of systems that allow that kind of progression. And I really appreciate the way that Twin Mask has a much flatter system where even like a new character can feel like they can matter because the numbers are not like so skewed.
Yeah.
To Var's
it seems
point,
like a lot of
go ahead.
LARPs are rewriting towards that. Because like DR changed everything recently to a scaling system, and we're about to change rule sets completely again. And new players, like I'll be able to do, if new player goes into a certain like aspect of trying to do something, I might be able to do that thing 2 or 3 more times than them, and that's about it.
Yeah, the system that Twin Mask uses is like you can like learn like defensive skills. Like you can have a skill parry, which if someone hits you with a weapon, you can say parry, and it's like they didn't, right?
Cool.
But that is a lot less in your face than like, hey, I swing 20 when I swing, and you swing 2.
Yeah.
Like, if a new character comes in who wants to fight, and they choose like the the special sword basically as their like new player item, which everyone gets, they'll swing 2 damage, and most of the time I swing 2 damage, so it's exactly the same. And despite the fact that like my character is recognized as like one of the strongest combat characters in the game, it's because I just have a bunch of skills that are like not visible in the same way, so they're not in your face. Hey, you don't matter.
Right.
And yeah,
the level of pregnancy in when Horus said "cool," whenever you said you get hit and you can parry it. I saw the gears turning. Like in Belegarth, we call that cheating.
That's exactly what I thought. I was like, man, there's just some people that they just
they use the parry skill at Belegarth, and then I hit him again.
Yeah. We have the same skills in DR too. There are some where it's like we'll have new players come in, and now everyone just swings flat base 2. All weapons just 2 damage. It used to be a melee weapon did 1 to like 15 damage. Whoa. So we'd have new people walk in, not be able to do anything. They have like 10 health. I walk past them in like that kind of armor behind me there. Hi, it takes 300 damage to drop me, and I'm Florentining for 20s. Oh, hey, hold these 2 swords. I'm going to grab the back of your collar. I'm going to take any damage you take for you. And then I would just like wield the new person, just like in the face. Like, get in there. You got this.
I had a
yeah.
I had a friend. God, what was her? I don't remember her DR name now, but she was she was kind of our sugar mama. So like we'd get
Atom
in
Bomb?
there. Say again.
Atom Bomb.
It wasn't Atom Bomb. I'm trying to think who it was.
Okay.
It was God, I can't think of her name now. I can think of her real life name, but I don't want to dox her on the
Right.
air.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
so we would go in there, and of course, like I said, they saw all these Amtgarder, tryhards, and so as soon as we stepped up to the plate, it's like, your armor's broken, your swords have to be dropped on the ground, your shields are broken. We're just like,
Whoa.
can't do anything, So it's not only do we have to fight these folks, but we have to fight them without them touching our equipment at any point. Because as soon as they do, they call out some call and we have to drop our shit and it's broken. And of course, we're new
Weapons,
players.
break shields.
Exactly. We have no way of repairing it because we have no money. We have no friends. We have nothing except for our, my sugar mama who would like teleport in, rescue me, teleport out, fix all my shit, and say, "Okay, now go kill people." I was like, "Okay." I'll tell one more DR story, then we'll move on to we'll continue with differences between Bell. So, Var, were you here for this when I got cut on my thumb?
I don't remember. I don't think so.
So I had on this license plate armor, and I should have uploaded a picture of it because I did DR a couple times, and so I showed up and I had this full outfit. It was like license plate armor and like all this stuff, and I kind of caught eyes with somebody who was trying to fight me, so we caught eyes, and so I got in my stance with my sword and board, and as I get into my stance, my left thumb sinks right into the license plate. And so the license plate, just the scar is still there. I don't know if you can see it on the stream. The scar is right there. No, you probably can't see that. But
I do remember that now, actually.
Right?
I do now, yeah.
So my hand just goes right into this license plate, and it just sinks into the fat of my hand. And so I pull it out, and blood is just all down my arm. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm fucked up. So I go to the main camp or whatever, and I'm like, "Hey, medic," and I'm like, God damn it, like I'm pissed off, and I'm like, "Medic, I'm bleeding really bad, medic, please." And I walk in, and all these kids, and this, people have various levels of injury that they're used to at the game they participate at. They were not used to this, so I walk in, and everybody is panicking, like they're just like, oh my god, and like Var has receipts for this, like this is true, like they're panicking, and they're just like and I'm just like, I'm fine, I just wrap it up, like wash me off, wrap it up, I'm gonna go out there and fight some more, like it's fine. And
for a lot of people, that's the first big active thing they've done. Like I haven't camped before.
Facts. And this kid, he sits me down, he says, "I believe that you're going into shock because you're not aware of how serious your injury is."
You're going into shock.
And I'm like,
"Oh no,
I'm not in shock. This is by far not the worst injury I've gotten doing this. It's fine."
Oh, that's so good.
So they call for somebody that has some medical training, and it's Molly who does Belegarth. And do you know Redhead Molly? She's also a Belegarth player. You know who Molly is, Var. She, she's done Amtgard at some point. So she walks in and she's like, "I heard there was a grievous injury." And she sees me and she's like, "It's fucking Tanith. It's fine." And so like, she dresses me up, wraps up my hand. She's like, "You should probably go get stitches." I'm like, "Well, I'm not going to do that." She's like, "I know you're not going to do that." So she wraps up my hand, and I go out there and I have to single sword for the rest of the event because I'm not quitting, like I'm obviously. And then that's my last DR story.
Broke my finger weightlifting. I squished it between two
oh
dumbbells.
no."
Like, it was actually, I was gonna go to SKBC. It was like right before that, but then I had a Twin Mask event like 2 weeks later or whatever, and I'm just like, well, I'm just gonna use a strap shield. Like, I'm not skipping it. So there were people who were like, when did you like decide to use shield or whatever? It's so weird seeing without two swords. And I'm like, well, the only reason is because my finger is literally broken and sitting here in like a cast.
Was that
I had almost the exact same thing happen. Like I broke my thumb on my sword hand, and I had to do like my big level like the equivalent of like a knight's trial,
Oh.
left-handed. And I took a little tiny punch buckler and like clipped it to my belt and just held it there to cover my hand, and I had to do it one arm.
Was that when SKBC, was it last year when it was in California?
It was in Vegas, yeah.
Yeah, Vegas, that's
Earlier
right.
this year.
Yeah. That was my first year teaching at SKBC.
Oh, nice.
But it sucks you broke your hand. That blows.
Yeah.
All right. We kind of got way off topic, and most of that was my fault, but what are the major differences between Lightest Touch LARPs and Belegarth? Var, let's start with you.
The biggest difference is probably the fact that most Lightest Touch LARPs, like, you got Friday night, like, we start Friday night at 10, and then it's all day, all night, till noon Sunday, and we do have a gap in the middle of the night where there's no NPCs. Everyone takes time to step off their character and be an NPC. Gotta have people be the zombies and everything else that's out there. But there's no like, all right, guys, fighting's done. Field was good. I'm gonna go sit over here where I can relax or whatever. It's like, no, keep your weapon nearby. We used to sleep in armor with weapons in hand, just like cuddling our swords, ready to go. And it's a very different, like, okay, fighting's done. I get to go do this or that now. It's an always ready to go kind of thing.
But you'd say there's less fighting though, right? Like overall.
It depends.
Okay,
it
that's
depends
fair.
on the event. There are some events where there is not less fighting, and then there's other events where, we have some raiders or zombies come through town. But then like we have some of the national events where it's like, yeah, there's a giant wall made of pallets over there. The Zed don't stop for 3 days. Good luck. Repair the wall. So it really depends on like what the plot's doing at that time.
Kibler, what would you say the biggest differences are?
I mean, I think sort of some of what we touched on earlier with the prioritization of different elements of the game, right? Like I think with like we're saying with Belegarth, so much is just about fighting, right? For instance, like my character in our game went through like a sort of like knight's trial style of thing. And while some elements of that were like combat related, it was much more like story based thing of, hey, you have to achieve these goals and do these sort of things. And it's like a lot of it ends up being like information gathering and like, trying to identify like, like there's literally a research skill in my game, right? Like people, and funnily enough, I may be learning it at our game this weekend because I'm like, I have enough combat skills that I never die. So at a certain point, it's like I'll do some of the other things. But yeah, like there's I think one of the big things is you're playing a character and that character is persistent between games. And in a lot of Lightest Touch LARP games, not necessarily all of them, there's like character progression, right? Like your character earns, like some games you have like level up, in some games you have like character points that you spend on specific things, and you can kind of define the sort of things that your character is able to do based on how you choose to spend those points. Some games have a class-based system which determines the sort of things you're even allowed to buy. The game that I primarily play, is kind of like a just choose your own adventure, basically, of like there are prerequisites for certain types of skills. But like you can buy all the combat skills and also magic skills and like crafting skills and gathering skills. There's like resources in the game to like make better gear, right? And so you'll have goals over the course of, say, a game weekend that are not just like, I want to be the best at fighting and kill all the things. It's like, I need to find manganese and iron and coal to, like, upgrade my sword, or like, I'm trying to stop this ritual that this evil cult is doing, or, whatever. And maybe that will be a big fight. Maybe that will be, hey, I need to like, like get information on like who's actually doing this and behind this and like stop it without a fight, which I generally try to avoid because I want the fight. But... There's still stick jock brain going on at all times. But there was there's one like event where like I was like trying to talk these like my character's a dragon. I was trying to talk these like spectral dragons out of like this fight, and I'm like, what is happening? How am I the one who's trying to like stop this fight? It's really a fight. And somehow I'm trying to get us out of this fight. What is wrong with me? What is happening?
Yeah.
What would
Yep.
so let's say I'm let me see if I get this right again. Belgarum. I'm Belgarum.
Belegarth.
God. I'm Belegarth, and I've never been to a lightest touch LARP. I've never even been to Amgard, and it's my first time. You know, Var sells me on this DR idea, or you know, I'm visiting California. I'm like, all right, I'm gonna come check this out. And we lost everybody. Did we lose everybody? Are they coming back? Let's just wait it out. God. They're back. Okay. Now I gotta put them back. Jesus. Tech problem Thursday. We're back. God. Okay.
Okay, there we go.
I was really building the suspense too. I felt like that sucked. Things are looking Bella grim. Well done. So it's my first time I'm hitting one of these lightest touch LARPs. Yes, you can absolutely get your booty shorts signed. Bring a marker. I got you.
Yep.
First time there. What do I need? How do I prepare myself? Physically, emotionally, mentally. What do I do?
So I would say that from my experience, most LARPers are aggressively helpful, right? Like,
I agree with that.
everyone who I've encountered who plays like any of the LARPs that I've played wants to help anyone who wants to get into it as much as they can, right? And you know, some LARPs have like incentives, like referral type policies that your character gets some sort of bonus if you bring new people in. Even outside of that, people just want to share this awesome game that they love with people, right? And you know, like for instance, Twin Mask has a Discord where like people are active at all hours of the day, and if you have any, you know, the moment you like appear, people are like, hello, welcome, like, you know, great to, you know, meet new person. And like literally like aggressively helpful is an accurate term. Because, you know, you'll have people who are like, hey, you should join my culture. You should do this. You should do this. And, you know, sometimes the point is like, hey, chill out. You're scaring them away. But yeah, like I think that most of these groups tend to be very welcoming. And the ones that aren't, you probably shouldn't play. Frankly, there are some shitty LARPs out there. And if, you know, that will have people who are like, I want to gatekeep all the fun stuff for me and my group to do. Don't play those. Right? Play the ones with people who are cool, who want to include new people, rather than the people who are like, you know, trying to keep all the new people out of their fun stuff.
Yeah.
Var, what do you think?
So, at our local chapter, because I'm on the Indiana DR team. It's my I'm the new player marshal. It's my job to bring new people up to speed and everything, and tell them that stuff. If you're coming from Bell, biggest thing to tell you is like, okay, it's not combat LARP, it's LARP with combat. Just think of it that way for now. You'll ease into it. Pretend like you're fighting a new person. We'll go over stuff. And I have swords specifically for visiting Belegarth to borrow that are too light for them to hurt anybody, and padded too well for them to hurt anybody, but still light enough that they can feel like they're swinging nothing around. And then just getting them up to speed on the roleplay aspects and like what is and is like, yeah, it's the apocalypse, and roleplay your character. But I try to remind everyone, your character doesn't have to be an asshole, and not everything that would happen or you do in the apocalypse you should necessarily do. Because the indie group is like, yeah, it's the apocalypse. You can kill people and steal things. But if you come in and do that, all of town's going to give you a slow turn and look and start loading shotguns. So it's give them a heads up. And then if it's a Belegarth, be like, cool, you got all that. Any questions, we'll get you set up. Now come over here. We're going to spar for a little bit till you get the hang of it. And then we put them in play. And usually I have to stop people from throwing things at them to give them free stuff because they give them too much and they overwhelm them.
Kinx comment of the evening. Horus internal monologue. Challenge accepted. So I've noticed that, you know, I've noticed a couple things, and I think you touched on this earlier, but I feel like this is applicable. Don't go to the game with the intention of playing your game somewhere else.
Mhm.
That's the
Yes.
biggest thing. And I,
Mhm.
you know, I have to tell people this that are going to Belegarth from Amtgard. I'm like, don't go to Bell with the idea that you were playing Amtgard at Bell and you're going to show these folks what's up. Show up to the game with the intention of playing their game. That's why you're there, you know. And you know, I
do
think
think that especially people coming from, from Belgarth, where they're used to I mean, Belgarth, there's friendly competition, but there's competition,
yeah,
right? And like, there's a lot of people who are like, they want to win their tournaments, they want to show how good they are at fighting, and while there's obviously an opportunity for that in lightest touch LARPs that have combat systems, which obviously they do if they're lightest touch. It is much less about just, hey, who's the best, right?
Mhm.
It's not about showing off and like it is very easy if you are someone who is very good at foam fighting in a game where like for instance in Twin Mask, the average person in the game probably fights like 8 times a year at the events, and that's it.
wow.
Yeah.
Right? Like most people aren't going to practices. Most people don't really care that much about getting better, and like I joke that like if like, the average person probably wouldn't hit me if we did like a first to 10 hits.
Yeah.
They just
Mhm.
wouldn't, right? But I'm not out there trying to embarrass them.
Mm-hmm.
That's not the point. The
Mhm.
point is to try to include them and let them have their cool, fun hero moments and find ways to include them in exciting story stuff, even if they're not a great fighter,
Mhm.
right? Like, it is very easy, I think, for people to like try to show off and take center stage when they're used to being in an environment where that is like a good thing
Mhm.
Mhm.
because you're showing how good you are, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
But when it's not about that, when it's more about the story, trying to find ways to include people so that they can have a cool part of the story too
Mhm.
is really, really important.
Handing off like, hey, this plot thing is happening. I know what this is. I could run with this. Hey, here you go. And just handing it off to somebody and just kind of being there behind them to nudge them if they need it. Just letting them go and do it.
As far as like, let's see. So as far as equipment wise, I know DR mostly uses like the silicone latex weapons.
It used to mainly be silicone or latex, plastidip, or people would use duct tape stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I've been playing locally for 8 years now. Everyone essentially, not everyone, people use silicone. They use a mixture of everything, but a
Mhm.
good majority of people are using bats I've made or versions of them where it's like you take an amp guard bat. It's just a normal amp guard bat without a stab tip. Then you shave it down to half the diameter on a bandsaw. So it's like
Wow.
that big around and weighs like 4 ounces.
That's interesting that they've switched to those kind. Like they've actually moved from realistic looking weapons to boffers.
Mhm.
Why is that?
But you can still paint those
Okay.
and paint them to look good.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Makes
Use
sense.
acrylic paint the cloth cover.
I am a strong advocate for B3AS. They are
Mhm.
is a boffer sword manufacturer.
Mhm.
The owner of B3 literally made the first ever non duct tape PVC boffers that I owned in like the mid 90s, and they
Whoa.
still just make the best stuff today.
B3 is great.
Yeah. So
B3AS.
if you're looking for good quality boffer weapons for lightest touch games, they even have specific lines for like Beakeline, if that's something you're interested in, which have like a stronger core because most people there are wearing metal armor, and like you can snap fiberglass very easily if you're hitting someone who's wearing full plate. I literally have a corner of my like entryway that is just piles of LARP weapons, and the vast majority of them are B3. And they even they have nice looking ones with the elite blades too, that aren't just like circular black duct tape, well, not duct tape but fabric sleeve type weapons. If you're looking for really pretty stuff and you're not necessarily looking for like the best performance stuff, Nemesis Atelier make really beautiful stuff. They have like a build your own sword type thing that you can do. My girlfriend and I actually went to their workshop when we were at Beakeline and went through it, saw their whole process, and made swords with them, and they are fantastic. So
Okay.
it really depends on like the sort of game, like, and your goals really. Like
Yeah.
if your goal is you want to like have the coolest, drippiest looking weapon, there are like options like Nemesis. If your goal is like you want to have the best performing weapon, I would 100% say B3. Oh, Olivia just brought me
Hey.
my nemesis sword, complete with
Hey.
sheath.
Whoa, that is pretty.
Oh, that's really nice.
That's gorgeous.
Got like a
Whoa,
glacial blade.
Oh, that's
thing,
awesome.
that's super
Yeah.
cool.
like a dragon pommel and all this.
Wild.
So not
Yeah.
not as light as a B3, but definitely super beautiful. And they have like these sheaths specifically made for them too that are like
Yeah.
pretty awesome as well.
That's because when you're, and I this is pretty self-evident for everybody, but just to explain, just for some people that are not familiar with LARPs, when you're doing lightest touch, and you're not whacking people, then you don't have to have as much foam on your weapon.
Right.
Safety. It's still safe to just do a touch with a weapon like that, as opposed to like a full bell shot. You have to have that padding on your sword.
Yeah, like this is like latex coated. So that like I said, they showed us their whole process. This is like heat pressed foam
Wow.
into the blade shape, and then it's latex coated and like laser cut and painted. So
That's a gorgeous sword.
Yeah.
I love the lightning.
That's really
pattern on it,
cool.
too. Yeah. There was, I think I'm really dating myself here, but there was a spring war in Amtgard in Texas. I want to say 2006, something like that.
Whoa.
This manufacturer of weapons like that came down to Spring War, which Texas Amtgard is like the most degenerate Amtgard that exists, especially South Texas Amtgard. And so they show up to Spring War with all these like latex weapons, and they hand them to a bunch of warlords, and they're like, go hit each other. And there's so many pictures from that event of people being like, and they just have this horrific welt, from somebody's like, and just broke a weapon over them.
No. Oh.
Hacks. It was when Hacks was a thing. If ever anybody remembers Hacks, probably not.
Oh my god.
Do you remember Hacks?
I didn't actually play hacks, but people talked about it a lot when I started, and just like imagining Belegarth where you can hit people in the head. Like one sounds really cool, but also just like back then, like with the fiberglass and stuff. Jesus Christ.
They handed everybody these
You're just gonna
fiberglass
kill
weapons.
people.
They said get into the ring and hit each other. They were like, okay, and just beat the fuck out of each
Yeah.
other with these things. And then
Yeah.
Hacks was like, huh, why aren't we making any money? Why aren't and everybody's like, that's because this is a terrible idea.
Yep.
the reason it's lightest touch. You're not supposed to hit people that hard.
Right.
Let's see what else we got on our agenda here. We've got, oh yeah, that's good. So what are the different types of lightest touch LARPs? Kibler, we'll go you first.
Well, yeah. I mean, we've been mostly talking about games that kind of have like an ongoing ongoing story, ongoing like events throughout the year that where you're sort of persistently playing a character, and generally you're probably getting a bunch of the same people going to the same events. There's also like what are often referred to as like blockbuster LARPs, which are like more like single site once a year kind of things. Like for instance, this summer I went to the Grand Bataille of Bikaline, and Bikaline is actually an ongoing LARP too. They have monthly events. On like if you haven't seen anything about Bikaline, you 100% have to look up like YouTube videos and pictures and like TikToks, whatever, because it is unbelievable. It's like a 350-acre site with over 300 like permanent buildings that are all like medieval style and everything. And the Grand Bataille is a week long, and you are like there the whole time if you choose to be. I mean, obviously people can go for they like 3-day passes. They have like a discovery day, which is Friday only. It's very different, I would say, than like the LARPs that we're describing, where you're playing a character and you're in character this whole time, because I would say it's like more of like a cross between like a LARP and like a Ren Fair. There's all kinds of cool there's like battles. Like for instance, the big battle on Saturday was 2,200 people. There was 1,100 people on each side of this battle. Like the total attendance, I think was 5,700, which was the biggest it had ever been. But like you're not like like we're saying for DR or for Twin Mask, you're not like playing a character the whole time at risk of dying walking to the bathroom. Like all of the battles there are like you opt in, you choose if you want to fight, and like if you die in the battle, you just come back, right? Like if your character dies in like Twin Mask or DR a bunch of times, there are mechanics to come back when you die, but eventually you stop coming back and your character is permanently dead.
Yeah.
Whoa.
And that's not the case for Bikoline. You know, like you could choose to have your character die and play a different character, but you know, you can just die a million times in a battle and you're like, you know, well, just go back to the respawn point and come back for you know, next time.
Mm-hmm.
Horace, we going to Biko next year?
Sure.
It's in Canada, I think.
It's
Yeah,
It is.
It is 2 hours north of Montreal. It is really far away, but it was incredible. Like, I was actually thinking of, like, my girlfriend and I were talking about like going to some of the campaign events, which are like the one-day events, and we live in California. Like, we were like, yeah, we'll fly out there. We had so much fun that we're like, we'll fly out there, take the 2-hour drive from the airport in Montreal to the site for a day, hang out, play, and you know, come back. Like, it was great.
Yeah.
I'm not going to overheat because it's
That's
actually,
true.
in the summer, so that was
Yeah.
actually, you see that armor back there?
Mhm.
I had originally got that.
yeah.
I was like, yeah, I'm gonna wear that Bikoline because like Bikoline's armor rules are pretty similar to Belegarth's,
Mhm.
and that like you know, you have extra point because their combat rules are, like I said, they're like paper doll style rules, but they're lightest touch.
Okay.
But
touch up.
like plate armor is worth 2 points. So if you were basically anything that like everything from like leather to chain or whatever, it's basically exactly the same as Belegarth armor rules. 1 hit to location, bonus. For plate, it's 2. I was like, well, I'm a terrible power gamer and I can't help myself, so I'm gonna get plate armor and wear that. And then I was like field testing it here, and I was like, this is unbelievably like hot, and it's not as hot in at Bikoline, but the humidity is absolutely killer.
Ooh.
I would say that the weather was probably pretty similar to what it was at Geddon this year.
Yeah.
It was like
That was
That's
brutal.
pretty dangerous for that.
85-ish, but like 80% humidity.
Jesus.
Mhm.
So like I would wear one shirt in the morning and sweat through it by midday, change into another shirt, sweat through that, and then it'd be like, well, neither of them are gonna dry because it's just 90% humidity.
Oh,
Yeah.
I can't go.
Yeah, we got lucky this year for Armageddon. It was actually pretty cool
Again this
compared
year?
to what it usually is in June.
Yeah, I guess that's fair.
Mhm.
It was still
More than
brutal.
Usually
anything,
it's like
Geddon
100
was
degrees on the field.
Which I live in Southern California. I live in the desert, right? Like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
it was just
That-
like it was
Yeah.
actually, I was sparring with Steel, who's one of the guys who is you know, from
Mhm.
one of the realms around here before Sword and Board, and we were both just like gassing instantly. It was like, let's save our ability to fight in
Mhm.
humidity
Yeah.
for the actual tournament and not wear ourselves out.
I live right by the Geddon site. It's people forget this is a river valley. They'll
Yeah.
visit and be like, "Oh no, Indiana's not that humid." No, it's going to be.
Yes.
Yeah, Gorg. That's Tuesday in Florida.
Oh, yeah.
Ugh.
The Florida kids were all fine.
Yeah, they were fine. They're like,
Yeah,
I'm
they're like,
so-
oh, this is great. It's just
somebody-
cooler than where we're from.
somebody at Geddon was like,
Oh my
I'm
God.
cold. I remember somebody saying they were cold at Geddon. And I was like, what?
Are they dying?
They were, no, I forgot where they said they lived, but it was like in the crucible of hell. They're like, no, this is fine for me. And I'm like, oh,
Wild.
okay.
Last week it was like 107 here, but it's like
But not
0%
humid.
humidity.
Not
Like,
humid, so it's
Yeah.
kind of
That's-
fine.
5% humidity.
Not
Yeah.
so bad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we got Biko, we've got Twin Masks, we've got DR, which is a post-apocalyptic kind of, you know,
Yep.
LARP. There's I know we talked about Nero as well. What would you say is different between Nero and Twin Mask?
Well, the biggest thing was what I was talking about earlier, as far as like the character advancement system and
Mhm.
like just the combat system. I'm told, I honestly don't even know if Nero exists anymore. It had like various, I know it's split into like Alliance and something else, and I know
Mhm.
that those have
Mhm.
probably split because it's been like 20 years or whatever since I've done Nero. But like a lot of those systems, you know, were sort of, as I mentioned earlier, built on like class systems that involve like just this persistent advancement. And at a
Mhm.
certain point, like new players are sort of, it's impossible for a new player to come into your system and feel like they matter.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
like, lots of those games have kind of like squishes, sort of like World of Warcraft, right? Like at a certain
Yep.
point, it's like, the numbers are too big. We need to make them smaller. So you need to kind of have like stat squishes and things like that to sort of rebalance things so that you don't just like have people having to do like calculus or whatever to figure out how much damage they're doing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's been a couple times when I was playing, actually even just playing Amp Guard, where it's just like the hits are coming in so fast and there's so many different numbers, and you're just like,
Yeah.
no.
So I've battle gamed once in Amgard. It was very fun. I had a great time.
Hell yeah.
But I had my first experience with that when this dude ran up to me, and I'm out there like I think it was two sword actually, and they like tell me I'm a berserker, I do 2 damage or whatever, and this guy runs up to me and like just goes like this, and I just stab him, and like he just like leans all the way over. I'm like, I stabbed him with a golf club with a slip of blue foam at the point. I'm like, did I just kill this guy? Like, is
Oh
he
god.
bleeding? Like, I stabbed him really hard, and he's like, two, and then runs away. I was like, oh yeah, I have to keep hitting you. Like, I'm glad
yeah.
he's okay, and then I just went back to respawn. But it
Yeah.
was so funny. I was
God.
like, I didn't even think to just like make sure he was dead, because I was like, are you okay? Like, are you bleeding?
Worried about him being legitimately dead at this point.
Yeah.
I want your character to be dead, not you. Like,
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, I one time when I was playing Nero, we like it was like in the middle of a snowstorm, but we still had an event. And
you do.
I got hit with like, and this is like mid '90s. I got hit with like a duct tape, and pipe insulation pole arm
Yep.
in the face, and I'm pretty sure I dislocated my jaw. Like it was frozen.
Yep.
It was frozen solid. This like massive duct tape monstrosity just clocked me, and I like I'm like trying to like adjust. I'm like, is that like working anymore?
Is it not right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I like woke up the next day, and I'm just like, my face is just like
Blah.
full of swollen. I'm like, oh great,
God.
lightest touch, huh?
Lightest touch.
Yep.
There was so that happened in DR a few times with me, where like, people were getting a little salty with us because they said we were swinging too hard, and we're like, okay, sorry, we're backing it off, So some other people in DR were kind of like, oh, all right, I can hit them hard too, Well, they're hitting us with these plastidip weapons, and they're singing, they're swinging the same speed. So they're like, wham, 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 and we're like, Jesus, like, stop!
Because most of those are that's just puzzle mat. That's puzzle mat with plastidip on it. Is what most people's buffers are.
Oof. Oof.
Yeah.
There's this other local LARP that I may have mentioned already called Solarian.
Yep.
And they come from, originally they were a Fallout themed LARP that kind of broke off and became a different game that was fantasy themed, and then that broke off and became a different game. But Solarian's big thing is you're not allowed to rap shot, so and I didn't know that. Okay. So the first time I came out to Solarian, like, I post up and a couple guys are coming after me, and I'm just like, bam, 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 and this guy like throws down his sword and runs up to me. He's like, what are you doing? I'm like, throwing a shot. He's like, that came so close to my face, and he was like freaking out about the level of danger involved. And I'm like, bro, I just, it was very much a culture shock for me. But you think about it, if the rules don't allow for those kinds of things, and that happens, and that happens a lot, then they're going to be thinking like, oh, this is a very dangerous thing that is happening. I am in danger from the way this person is playing. But for me, I'm like, this is, like Gork said, this is the Tuesday, and like, and then you also have that same kind of interaction conversely a lot of times when Amp-Guarders come out to Bell and somebody's kind of like, hey, watch this, and just plants them with a shield bash, and they're just like,
God, yeah.
What the my friend Wilhelm, one time when they were doing like a Bell style tournament, he had never played Bell before, and they did this Bell style tournament, so like somebody shield bashed him. He's like, okay. So he like picked the guy up and body slammed him like, he's like, I can do that, right? And they're like, no, you can't do that.
There's two types of people.
It was a good time.
Man.
It was a good time. So there's lightest touch LARPs, and then there's also like parlor LARPs where people are doing this kind of stuff. Is there any kind of in between, lightest touch and parlor that you're aware of? They're just trying to explore the space.
So, for instance, there are like Twin Mask, the game that I play, has like an entire like non-com system.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you are someone who, for whatever reason, does not feel comfortable or safe participating in buffer combat,
Mm-hmm.
you can still play the game. You know, there's a system where you have to wear like an orange headband to indicate that you're a non-com, and people are not allowed to hit you with foam swords. And there is like narrative combat that can be done, like, you know, so someone can be like, "Hey, I hit you. You take 2 damage," and you know they have like an ability to let them escape. You know, if like they are physically, you know, like potentially feeling like they are unsafe,
Mm-hmm.
even outside of like, you know, no one being allowed to hit them.
Mhm.
And there are like, you know, there's like actually a staff member, you know, dedicated to creating stories for them that they can participate in, because in a lot of
Okay.
cases, people who, you know, can't participate in like the big fights during a game might feel like they're left out.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a very active attempt to include people who, you know, choose to opt out for whatever reason of the actual combat portion of the game. And then there are people who, you know, they may not be non-combat, they just don't take combat skills, right? They're like, oh, my character is like, you know, a merchant and I run away, or I hire a bodyguard or whatever. So I think that, you know, I mentioned this earlier, but one of the things that I really appreciate about a game system like that is that, you know, while there are those of us who are like, you know, we love swinging foam, you know, we're you know, stick jocks through and through, there are a lot of people who are not like that.
Mm-hmm.
And them having the opportunity to, you know, also participate in ways that feel meaningful,
Mm-hmm.
and not, you know, not like sort of you know, oh well, you get to go and do this or whatever, which I think can come off that way in some ways. And I'm just distracted by the dog. Are we showing dog now?
We're showing
Yeah,
dogs.
absolutely.
There's Ellie.
Oh.
Oh, she's so
Oko.
cute.
There's Oko too. I'm dual wielding dogs.
Hell yeah.
Yes, that's the best way to do dogs.
There's
Yes.
something I thought was
I love
freaking
them.
amazing. I was preparing for the show. I was watching Kibler stream a little bit, and do you have like a dog cam?
Yes, I
It's
have a dog cam.
so good. There's like
I
there's
should
a
get a dog
you should get a
cam.
dog cam.
Mm-hmm.
It's like the camera's pointed right at where the dog hangs out, and it's just the dog cam.
People love dog and cat cams.
Yes.
So
I miss
good.
having cats. I wish I wasn't allergic. I'd just get more.
Aw.
I guess
Russian blue.
Yeah, that's true. I did have one Russian blue, and I could rub my face on him, and he was fine.
I also had a Russian
Or
blue.
I was fine.
But
I
then
guess. He's
he-
always fine.
My Russian blue shit in my AV box. He was like mad at me, and he'd climb into my AV box and shit in it to express his displeasure, and I was like, "You gotta go, buddy. Sorry." That was it.
Oh no.
Oh man. My Russian blue cured my fear of spiders, because one day I found him and he's like being weird, and there's a spider on the ground, and it is a big, scary, terrifying, hairy spider. And he's going, tapping it. And I'm like, what are you doing? And he stops tapping it, and then it tries to run, and then he grabs it, and he taps it, and then it stops moving. And then he goes and grabs it with his teeth. And when it moves, he drops it, puts his paw on it, and taps it until it stops moving. And then he just finally it completely stopped moving, and he ate it whole.
Oh,
And I was like,
That's fascinating.
you're the dumbest, weirdest cat I've ever met in my life,
Oh.
and you just like full on whole ate a spider. I'm not scared of spiders anymore. Like,
Does that work? Like, if a spider's attacking me, do I just start petting him and you're such a good spider?
just pat it on the head, apparently. Yeah,
That's wild.
it's crazy.
Mhm.
This is Bastion. He's
My Bastion.
he's a handful. It's great, but he loves sitting on me.
Mm-hmm. If I had the door open, I'd probably have a cat or two in here on me.
So we talked about Nero, Twin Mask, Solarian, DR. Are there any other major ones? And Biko. I get it all. Are there any other major ones that we're leaving out that maybe none of us have tried?
I mean, I know that in Europe there's like huge
Yes.
events, like you know,
Mhm.
there's like Empire,
Mm.
Conquest, Lydia. There's,
Drachenfest just started.
Number one.
Drachenfest.
Drachenfest US. I've been looking at possibly.
Yeah.
going to.
Yes.
I
Bunch
have
of
some-
friends of mine have gone. They
Yeah, I
loved
have
it.
some friends who've really enjoyed it, so I'm thinking of trying to make it out there potentially next year. Although I think it is around the same time as Geddon, if I remember correctly. It's like, you know, sometime like mid
Yeah.
June.
It's real
Yeah.
close. Yeah.
Just before or after or something.
They're talking about Alliance, but Alliance is sort of Nero. Like that's a split off of Nero.
Alliance
Right?
was like one of the games that splintered from Nero.
Yeah.
Like I think it was like Alliance and Solar or something. Was
Yeah,
one of them.
Solar. Yes.
It's been a very long time since I've thought about
Solar. That was I was reading a webcomic for a while that was like based on Solar or something like that. I don't remember. I don't remember what it was called. Yeah, I remember. I was like, "What is this Solar thing?" And then Hearthlight. Hearthlight's not Lightest Touch though, is it?
No, it's a Belegarth or Dagger here. It's a Dagger here spinoff, not spinoff, but
Happen again.
Look, I know they have several branches. You have Kanar, which is a Lightest Touch. If anything, that might be between Parlor and Lightest Touch because it's Lightest Touch, but you have to be more theatrical with your fighting. I believe it was Kanar, or I'm misremembering names. But there's one where you get like slow and you have to do like more, not stage fighting, but much more theatrical fighting than
Makes
just
sense.
like efficient little taps.
Yeah, I was looking up like the rules for some of the big European LARPs because I had such a great time at Bico and I was like watching all sorts of videos on like YouTube of like these other of like where else could I go that would be cool, and Conquest of Mythidia, it's like apparently absolutely huge, like 10,000 people or something. Yeah. But I was looking at their rule book and it's like they're basically are just like aren't rules for it's just like kind of do what you want and just like be cool about it. And like even like combat, it's like just decide when you should die. I'm like, what is this? Like,
Oh yeah.
it's hard for my like competitive gamer brain to wrap my head around like just fight and make it cool. I'm like, yes, but also how do I win?
Yes. There's no rules. How do I win? Hold on.
There's I forgot the name of I'm on some Facebook page. I don't know that I'm still there. But it's this big, like, boffer, LARP-centric Facebook page. And there's a whole bunch of US people on there and a whole bunch of Euro people on there, too. And the epic fights that US and Euro LARPers get into on this page is the stuff of legends. It's so funny. Because everybody comes into these kind of things, like, every third person has a swinging dick when they're interacting on Facebook. It's just a thing. And so you get all these American LARPers that are on there like, that's right, we and then you get all these Euro LARP people on there that are like, well, your garb is atrocious. And, and they're just like going on and like, and it's a constant shit talk between the two continents. And it's so funny. It's so funny. Because it's like what each of these LARPs do, they do exceptionally well, and it's like you have these Euro LARPs that are incredible. You see these pictures and you're like, this is better than a movie. I've seen blockbuster movies that are less cool looking than these LARPs, but then when you actually watch some of the fighting and that kind of stuff, the American LARPer people are like, these guys aren't very good, and like that's where our brain goes, is like, well, and so sport, so it turns into this like everybody's trying to apply their cultural norms and mores to whatever situation we're talking about, and it's like the European people are like very upset about the things the Americans are describing because they're all wildly unsafe, and then the Americans are all kind of like, there's like, well, there's a lot of class shaming that the Americans feel are going on because everybody's talking about, well, you shouldn't even show up unless you're dressed head to toe in these outfits, and so the Americans are getting bent out of shape, and it's just it's delicious. If you like internet drama, it's wonderful. Absolutely delicious to participate in.
Sorry, we don't have castles to LARP in. We don't have like the sort of built-in historical sites to use as the backdrops for our events. Like I was literally looking up like the Conquest of Mythidia thing. It's like, oh, this is at like this 15th century like knights estate or something. I'm like, oh, okay. Why don't we run our events at our knights estates here in the U.S.?
Right. Someone I was talking to, we were talking about LARP stuff. She's a creator on TikTok. She's like, oh yeah, no, I just got back from a LARP. Was up in the Alps, in the mountains, in the snow, like 4 feet deep. Beautiful. Like, wild. I'm just like, it's like no out of character. Everything has to look like period and genre, and I'm just like the pictures. I'm like, Game of Thrones didn't look this good.
Yep.
Like,
The the other thing that I think is not really talked about is the accents. So like, if you're LARPing in England, they all have like fantasy accents because they're all British.
They're not the Yorkers or whatever from
Yeah, exactly.
Oh god.
That was much more immersive than someone who's like.
And so like, so you go to a LARP in the United States, and a lot of times, people are like, "Hello, I am Sir Horik the Paladin," and you're just like, "Okay, that's cool." And then I one time when my dad retired, he took me to Australia. That was like our retirement thing, and so I played some Dungeons and Dragons at a convention in Australia, and it was Australian accents, but everybody's like, "Oh," and they had the accents, and I'm like, this is cool. This helps you really get into it, because everybody sounds correct,
Yeah.
So I would imagine like, some LARP in the middle of Germany and everybody is like speaking in German and you're just like, ooh, I'm really here, aren't I? That would really help with that, I think, that immersion factor.
For you, for them, it's like, that sounds like Jeff from the gas station.
Yeah.
I'm sure too, like the subtleties in different like British accents, for instance. Like,
Yeah.
It's like, oh, this guy doesn't sound like a knight. He sounds like a cockney, like farm worker or whatever. Like,
For justice, governor, and you're just kind of like,
well,
that's
is,
wrong.
Like, so Bicoline, like, it's in Quebec. It's in French Canada, and the primary language there is French, but it's not just French. It's Quebecois French, which like is apparently very, very different. Like my girlfriend, like, speaks French, lived in Paris for a period of time, and would have trouble understanding what people were saying because like Quebecois is like actually such a different spoken language than Parisian French.
That's yeah, I think, and what was I was watching that show Shoresy, and you hear a lot of Quebecois, French and Shoresy and whatnot. It seems to be very different. It's so good.
It's so good.
Oh.
I think we're not going to do the promos tonight, and I think the reason we're not doing the promos tonight is because just given the nature of the show, this isn't our usual audience. I don't see a lot of the same faces here tonight, so I want to make sure that the people who are usually show up for the show and that kind of thing are here for the for the promos. But I do want to take some time and make sure Kibler and Var, you guys have an opportunity to talk about the things that you're doing, your streaming and whatnot, and give you an opportunity to throw out some links and stuff like that. So Kibler, we'll start with you if you want to take it away, and what do you got going on, and how could our audience help? Yeah, talk about what you got going on. Promote your stuff.
So as I mentioned earlier, like I have a Magic Commander YouTube show called Commander at Home. The most recent episode just went live today, in fact, is a bonus episode. And that I also do Hearthstone streaming. My Twitch username is BM Kibler. You can find me there. And yeah, if you are at all interested in LARP stuff, latest touch LARP stuff, and you are in or around the SoCal area or coming to visit sometime, hit me up about Twin Mask. It is literally my favorite thing that I do, and I do a lot of cool shit. So, I highly, highly recommend it if you are remotely interested, and I'm more than happy to help anyone out with getting them into the game, because I literally helped write the rulebook, so I can get you situated.
Heck yeah.
Oh yeah.
What's the next Belegarth event you're heading to?
Probably Bifter.
Okay.
I was looking at possibly doing Ockfest, but Ellie's surgery is later this month, and I didn't want to try and travel while she's still recovering.
That's fair.
But yeah, I will definitely be at Battle for the Ring, and I'm gonna try and make it out to Geddon next year as well, and see what other sort of events are able to do in between.
Okay.
Sweet.
Var, you got anything to promote? You doing anything?
Well, I'm not really, like, I do leather commissions here and there for armor and such. Right now I'm kind of full up and just behind because life stuff. This weekend we do have, because I help write for and run the Indiana Dystopia Rising branch, help guide for it. We have our big premiere event this weekend, running Friday to Sunday. I think we just broke 55 people signed up. So I'm busy with that all weekend. We do have a monthly game. The Discord's super active. You can find it on Facebook for Dystopia Rising Indiana. Other than that, I've just been kind of hitting Bell. Eventually, I might start streaming. I just haven't had the time. Everything's been too busy.
Totally understand.
Yeah.
We talked about, I talked to Var about, perhaps if you want to start, if you want to get your started streaming, you could do the same thing Cord's doing, and maybe throw a show up on the bench channel and get your start there. So, that's something we might be able to do. Any last words? Any last words on our topic? Any last words in general? All right.
LARP's fun. You should do it.
LARP's fun. You should
Yes.
do it. 100%. I want to thank our guests, Kibler and Var, for joining us today. Horus, you got any last words?
I don't.
You don't?
I'm excited. I want to go try one of these though. It sounds fun.
I know there. Where are you at again? You're in Champaign, right?
Champaign, Illinois, middle of nowhere.
I know there's some LARPs and some lightest touch stuff going on in St. Louis. I know there was some stuff in Indiana. I'm sure there's something around you.
The middle of nowhere is one of the best places for LARPs because there's
Facts.
just a bunch of forest and
Nothing else to do.
Yeah.
I played at an Amtgard park that was in downtown New York City, which you would think would have unlimited potential, right? Small park, couldn't get anybody to do it.
Nope.
People would see it and they'd just be like, "That's cool," and then just they have too much shit going on, so they there's so many things to do, they just weren't interested.
Yeah.
It's the same thing in the Chicago realms.
Yeah.
They used to have a practice like on the lake. It was so cool to go to. And, like there's people everywhere. One of the smallest practices like in the area.
I believe that. I visited an Amtgard park in Chicago one time. There was like 6 people. There's just nobody there. It's weird how that works out. But wait. Gork says a fun middle ground for me has been Darkon. It has.
Oh, how did we forget Darkon?
We forgot
I
Darkon.
don't know.
I've never heard of it.
There's a whole movie based on Darkon or something like
There
that.
was, yeah.
Yep. Darkon's kind of close to Nero. It's a good in between of lightest touch and like Belegarth, from what I understand.
Isn't it like kind of lightest touch, but you can also body slam people?
Yeah, you can like hit people in the head, but only with flails, and they're made differently. Yeah, I think that the Darkon rules are like closer to Dag and Bell than they are
Yeah.
anything else.
I will say one of the weirdest things when I went and did Beakeline was that Beakeline is the lightest touch LARP, but it allows headshots.
Yeah.
Like, but you can't hit someone in the face. You have to hit them on like the top of the head or the side of the head. And like, it was very easy for me to adapt to defending my head just with like a hanging guard. But like the first time I like just sort of swung around and like bopped someone in the head, I was like, oh god, oh wait, no, that was
Yeah.
that was actually a really good shot, not a horrible mistake.
There was, there's the thing that happens whenever a Boffer combat person does SCA for the first time, where you suit up and you're like, all right, I'm gonna whoop some ass, and you step out and then somebody throws for your head and you don't do anything, just deer in headlights, like, okay, bing, and you're like, well, I'm dead, aren't I? And it takes about 3 or 4 before you start guarding your head.
It's really weird because like you go do it, right? But like it's not the first shot that you don't block. That one, you're like, they can hit me in the head. I'm remembering, and then you're fighting, and then you get like a good exchange, right? But neither of you have died. And then they throw for your head, and your brain just is like, that doesn't count.
Yep.
And bing, and you wait. Oh no, I was supposed to block that.
I've noticed that when I was doing SCA, shoulder wraps were so good because you do like a little Phoenician lives and then, just wrap the shoulder, and like they think you're going for the head, and so they'll guard their head and you just hit them in the shoulder and you're just like, nobody else hit you there, do they? So that like throwing some of those like boffer shots do sneak past sometimes. Because I feel like at least in SCA, they kind of hone in on the head and they really want to get that headshot.
Yes.
I wonder if Biko's
they
like
also,
that too.
Like, don't think you're gonna pocket stab them. Like sometimes you'll like go like this at their face and they're like shield in front of face and you're like stab them in the body and they're like, wait, what? Like, you can do that?
Oh yeah.
It's really good.
Dinesh says a lot of Amp-Guarders have had good early success in their transition to SEA.
Love
Absolute facts.
I actually I had an opportunity to train with this guy when I was at Beakeline, who's like one of the top ranked, if not the top ranked Boohurt duelist in Canada. And he was like, "Oh, you should try Boohurt. You'd be a beast." And I'm like, "I do not want to get hit with actual metal weapons. Sorry."
No.
I'm
I like
literally
my
on
bones.
camera for a living. This can't get.
Fellow 44-year-old saying,
Exactly.
absolutely not.
Yeah.
No.
Like,
I wanted to do it so bad when I was really young, like
Mhm.
20, 21, and then I watched a dude get hit in the head and his helmet caved in from an axe and he died. And I was like, nah, I'm good.
Yep, no.
No thanks.
Yeah.
I-
I'm 14 boxer fractures deep. I'm
Oh.
iffy on even doing SC at this point.
God.
Don't punch
Yeah.
block.
No. Well, punch block with gloves. We have a glove episode, sort of. I feel like that our health and safety episode has like turned into the glove episode because that's like
Yes.
that's
Yeah.
everybody talks about the gloves from that episode.
Gloves don't help with 8-foot band shop.
Oh God, they don't.
There's
do
so
they?
much. There's too much weight.
Oh.
In SCA, at least, you can put like the metal guard on your hand, like a lot
Yeah.
of people do, so it's not so bad. But
It has nothing to do with this show, but I guess I'm wondering if like 5-10 years from now, we're gonna start seeing like this CTE, like all these Boohurt guys are like completely, their bodies are wrecked, like I wonder if that's
Maybe.
gonna be a thing. Maybe
Mhm.
like we'll
I
see.
think that, like, as much as we say that, like, Boohurt is probably a lot safer than doing like boxing or something.
Yeah, that's fair.
Like,
Yeah.
so if you were gonna go do boxing or MMA, like, you could
Mhm.
probably do Boohurt a lot longer than you can do those
Yeah.
other ones.
Well, it's like there's already a ton of cross gaming. There's a bunch of I know a bunch of DR players that are on like Team USA for
Whoa.
Boohurt or ACL.
Mhm.
Like cross gaming's exploded in the
Yeah.
last couple years, and it's really cool to see.
Some of our prominent warlords from Amp-Guard, Brett, Raven the Swift, they're big ACL and Boohurt guys, and I think they like won. I want to say Raven won like the national championship here or something like that. Like they are
Nice.
prominent Boohurt fighters now. And I know Brett has pretty much retired from foam fighting, and that's what he does. And Spin Thrift is like one of the
SCA.
he's one of the biggest fighters in SCA, or at least he was a few years ago.
Not shocked.
Not shocked at all. X3Z8 is saying, I know double-digit Boohurt people with more than 5 concussions easily. It's just as bad as football. Mega Duke.
Mega Duke.
Mega Duke.
Do they do anything after you get King twice? I thought it was just Duke. You get it twice, and then you're Duke forever, no matter how many more times you win.
Don't know. No idea. Question for another day. Thank you to our guests. Appreciate y'all very much. Thank you for the fans that come on by and listen to us. Next week, we're talking about preparing for trials. That's our topic for next week. So if you got Knights trials, you've got like the Monster Hunter trials, any kind of trial, and that's very much a Belegarth thing. We're going to talk next week about how to prepare for trials. We've got Makut Coat. Did I say that right? Makut? Makut
Yep.
Coat is one of our guests. We're working on our second guest. We have plenty of options. We're kind of trying to figure out who the best fit would be. But as soon as we narrow it down, I'll announce it. But preparing for trials, because I wanted to give y'all a real Belegarth centric topic for next week. So looking forward to it. I think, are we Var, are we going to do a raid for your roommate?
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Kibler raided us, so we're gonna pay it forward, and we're gonna raid Var's roommate. What's your roommate's stream about?
So she's one of the directors for the local indie group for DR. But she streams art. Right now she's drawing tarot cards of people's characters that she does. She'll does mostly art. Occasionally play games. We do a lot of talking, a lot of like LARP talking, some like mental health talks sometimes. It's just a good time. We hang out. Everybody's pretty chill.
Oh yeah.
If you have any more DR questions and stuff, she'd be a good person to ask and get answers from.
Well, let's do it. Let's raid. I'm skipping the theme song and everything. I'm not. How do we do this? I've never done this, and I tried looking it up, but then I got distracted.
You can just type /raid username. There's also like a thing in the dashboard that you can click.
Okay.
That'll bring up a
What's their username?
menu.
Username is Static Kling. Kling. I'll type it in chat.
Okay.
1 second. Yes.
Hell yeah. All right. Well, again, thank you guys very much. And until next time, here we go. 3, 2, 1. Are we going? Did we do it?
Oh,
Did we
it'll
do
be
it?
going in. Looks like it's going.
We're rating.
We're rating. In 2 seconds and 1 second.
Oh, hey, I know her.
Raid now!
Yeah,
Boom.
that's Static.
Cool.
Looks like.
We're rated. No, do I just...
Hey, yep, it went through.
Oh, yeah. Do I just end my stream now?
I mean, yeah,
Okay. Thanks, guys. Really appreciate it. Great show.
Yeah.
yeah,
That's
it was
fun.
fun.